I never imagined a single text could make my heart skip like this, even after 6 years. Sitting by my floor-to-ceiling window in my downtown apartment, the city lights reflected off the glass, painting long streaks of gold across my silk blouse. The hum of traffic below was comforting, a background reminder that the world keeps moving, even when mine had stopped for so long. My phone buzzed again, insistently, and I hesitated before picking it up. "Claire, you need to see this." The message was from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, someone who had been there the night everything changed, my cousin's wedding. I hadn't opened old wounds for years. I'd built a life that my family would never suspect. My name on successful projects, my own apartment overlooking the skyline, a career that felt like mine, not borrowed or handed down. And yet, here it was, dragging me back. The lie that had turned my entire family against me, whispered so convincingly that even I had doubted myself at the time. My hands curled around the warm mug of coffee I hadn't finished, the aroma grounding me, reminding me I was still Claire, the woman who survived. My stomach tightened, but there was something else, too, a quiet, simmering anticipation.
It was time.
Time to face the past, time to finally let the truth breathe again. 6 years ago, I was someone else, so much younger, so desperately eager to belong. The sun had slipped behind the wedding hall's grand windows, casting long shadows across the polished marble floor. I remember the way my hands shook as I tried to steady the champagne flute, my reflection trembling in its golden liquid. Every smile I forced felt brittle, every laugh rehearsed. It started with a casual comment, something whispered between cousins, meant to be harmless. But somehow, it twisted into a lie, a false story about me that spread like wildfire through our extended family. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, every glance heavy with suspicion. My own mother's eyes, the ones I had trusted without question, narrowed with something I couldn't name at first: disappointment, anger, disbelief. I tried to explain, to laugh it off, to show them the truth. But words bounced off hardened walls. "Claire, you've never lifted a finger for anyone," someone hissed under their breath, and just like that, I felt invisible, irrelevant, erased. A lump formed in my throat, and the sting of rejection pressed so hard I could barely breathe. I wanted to disappear, to vanish from the whispers, the judging eyes, the family that once felt safe. Then, in the chaos, my grandmother appeared. Her hands were wrinkled but steady as she placed a small, worn notebook in mine. "Keep your story," she whispered, "and write your own ending. Don't let anyone steal your truth." Her voice, soft yet firm, anchored me. That night, standing alone on the balcony, feeling the cool breeze against my face, I made a decision. I would leave. I would build something no one could question, and I would rise without waiting for forgiveness. That was the turning point. The night my family turned on me over a single lie became the night I discovered my own strength. Fear, anger, and heartbreak mingled into determination. I didn't yet know how, but I promised myself I would survive, and eventually, they would see the truth. Leaving wasn't easy. I remember dragging my suitcase through the crowded airport, the city skyline disappearing behind me, each step weighted with doubt and fear. But in that suitcase were more than clothes. It carried my resolve, my grandmother's notebook, and a quiet promise that I would make something of myself, on my own terms. I started small. A shared apartment in a city where no one knew my name, working jobs that barely paid the bills, scraping together every dollar to invest in my passion, design. Nights blurred into mornings as I hunched over sketches and spreadsheets, coffee cooling untouched on the desk beside me. Self-doubt knocked on my door every day, whispering that maybe I wasn't enough. But then, there were moments of magic. A client who saw potential in a draft, a mentor who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Her name was Evelyn, a seasoned interior designer whose sharp eye could spot both flaws and brilliance. She took me under her wing, letting me assist on projects that intimidated me at first, guiding me through the technicalities of running a business, negotiating contracts, and understanding the art of presentation. She never coddled me, never offered empty praise, but she saw something in me, just like my grandmother had, and that made all the difference. I made mistakes, plenty of them. Nights where I cried over miscalculated budgets, mornings I spent rewriting proposals after client rejections. But slowly, the pieces fell into place. My first big client came after months of persistent emails and late-night calls. The joy of signing that contract was intoxicating. The first profitable project followed, then another, and another, each one a silent defiance to the family that had doubted me. Yet I kept my success hidden. Instagram posts were modest, updates sparse, achievements never shared during family check-ins. My life was quietly, fiercely mine. I didn't need their approval. I was building a fortress of my own making, one that no lie could penetrate. The notebook sat on my desk, pages filled with sketches, goals, and little reminders of that night at the wedding, a symbol of resilience and self-determination. By the time 6 years had passed, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I had my own brand, my own office with sunlight spilling across polished floors, walls adorned with artwork that spoke of my journey. I'd learned the art of patience, the power of focus, and most importantly, the strength in claiming my own story before anyone else could write it for me. The woman who left that wedding hall trembling was gone. In her place stood someone capable, unapologetic, and quietly unstoppable. I remember the day they came, expecting to find a struggling, timid version of me, the same girl they had dismissed 6 years ago. I had deliberately orchestrated it that way, letting them believe I had remained fragile, invisible, defeated. The knock at my office door sounded ordinary, almost polite, but the tension in my chest was anything but. "Claire?" My cousin's voice, hesitant and slightly guilty, carried a weight that made me smirk quietly. Behind her, my mother, my uncle, and a few others stepped inside, their eyes scanning the room as if they were searching for some trace of failure. The office was warm, alive with sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. The walls bore modern art I'd commissioned myself, each piece a reflection of my journey and personal taste. My desk was polished, but not ostentatious, and scattered with evidence of my success: contracts, portfolios, awards tucked into neat frames, and my grandmother's notebook open in the corner, its pages filled with sketches and reminders of the path I had walked alone. They paused, taking it all in, and I let them. The silence stretched, each second amplifying the tension. I watched their expressions shift: surprise, confusion, a faint edge of guilt creeping into their features. I could almost hear their thoughts, trying to reconcile this woman with the girl they had so easily dismissed. Finally, I spoke. My voice calm, deliberate, and steady. "This is the life I built after that wedding. The life I've earned, piece by piece, without waiting for anyone to believe in me." I gestured to my office, to the evidence of my labor. I run my own design firm, have multiple clients across the country, and my projects are profitable. My name is on everything here, legally and professionally. I am not the girl you think I am. My mother's eyes widened, her hands trembling slightly as if reaching for an explanation she couldn't find. My cousin's jaw tightened, lips pressed together, disbelief and shame mingling on her face. My uncle looked down, silent, avoiding eye contact. Some of them had expected modest success, a career I had cobbled together quietly. But this was a level of achievement they hadn't imagined, and suddenly, every whispered lie, every accusation from that night felt both insignificant and devastatingly real. I let the silence linger a moment longer, giving them time to absorb the truth fully. Their reactions, raw and unfiltered, were everything I had imagined: awe, shame, and the uncomfortable realization that the version of me they had wronged was now completely untouchable. Then, with a calm smile, I added, "I didn't tell you before because it wasn't your story to know. And I don't owe anyone proof of my life. But now that you're here, it's time you understand. Your disbelief didn't stop me. Your doubt didn't define me. I did that on my own terms." For the first time in years, I felt the weight of the past lift slightly. The lie that had overshadowed my life no longer held power. I had confronted it, not with anger or tears, but with proof, presence, and the undeniable strength of a woman who had fought for herself and won. The room was thick with tension, but for the first time, it was on my terms. I had the upper hand now, not because I wanted revenge, but because I had earned the right to set boundaries. The girl they had dismissed 6 years ago was gone. In her place stood a woman who understood the value of her own time, energy, and dignity. I leaned back in my chair, letting my gaze sweep across each of them. "I will help, yes," I said softly, "but on conditions. This is not charity, and it is certainly not a free pass for old mistakes." My mother's hands clenched together. My cousin's eyes darted nervously. I could see the fear and guilt intertwined with curiosity. They had no idea what I would demand. "First," I said, "you must respect the lives you've built for yourselves. Stop projecting guilt, stop clinging to old resentments, and pursue what actually makes you happy. No more leaning on me to fix what you've neglected for years." I could feel the weight of their stares, absorbing each word. "Second, you will apologize, not just to me, but to each other. Honesty matters. Lies, no matter how small, can destroy trust." My grandmother's notebook sat on the desk, open as if nodding in approval. That small piece of wisdom had carried me this far. Now it guided them too. "Third, you must acknowledge growth as a responsibility, not just a privilege. This means breaking toxic habits, fostering empathy, and learning to celebrate success without envy or judgment. I've worked hard to build my world, and I will not let old patterns compromise it." My cousin swallowed hard, and my mother's eyes glistened, but I didn't soften. Compassion doesn't mean compromising your boundaries, and I had spent 6 years learning that lesson the hard way. "These are the terms," I concluded. "Follow them genuinely, and our relationships can be rebuilt. Ignore them, and you will see me only as a stranger who chose not to repeat the past." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, a shift began. My family's shoulders relaxed in small increments, tentative acknowledgement replacing the shock. I could sense a fragile hope forming. Hope that they could evolve, that they could become people capable of fairness, trust, and respect. I realized something in that moment. Power is not in proving others wrong. Power is in giving them a chance to be better while remaining untouchable yourself. I had turned a lie into a lesson, a wound into a boundary, and years of pain into clarity. I smiled, small and deliberate, letting them see that I wasn't punishing them, but that I had transformed. For the first time, I understood that my success was not just professional, it was emotional, moral, and spiritual. I had shifted the power, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And that made all the difference. Weeks passed after that confrontation, and I watched quietly as the small shifts began to take shape. My mother started volunteering at a local shelter, a place she had always admired but never acted upon. My cousin, once prone to gossip and comparison, enrolled in a professional course she had postponed for years. Even my uncle, who had always been stubbornly proud, began attending family therapy sessions, learning to listen rather than lecture. I observed from a distance, proud but detached. This was not about control or proving dominance. It was about witnessing growth, genuine and unforced. Each of them changed in their own rhythm, sometimes faltering, sometimes advancing, but always moving forward. And I realized that my role had never been to fix them. It had been to define myself. Sitting at my desk one evening, the city lights flickering like fireflies, I opened my grandmother's notebook. The pages were worn and fragrant with the memory of her wisdom. I traced a line I had scribbled years ago. "Write your own ending." I smiled softly, realizing I had done exactly that. The ending wasn't about revenge or validation. It was about strength, independence, and grace. I thought back to that wedding, to the lie that had seemed insurmountable. How ironic that the very act that had broken me had also set me free. I had taken the sting of betrayal and forged it into determination. I had taken years of silence and built a voice so strong that it could not be ignored. And in seeing my family grow, I understood another truth. Forgiveness and boundaries can coexist, And love does not require compromise at the expense of self-respect. For the first time in a long while, I felt fully at peace. I was Claire, unapologetic, empowered, and unshakable. The girl who left that wedding trembling had been replaced by a woman who could confront the past, embrace the present, and shape the future with unwavering clarity. And as I closed the notebook and looked out over the city, I whispered to myself, a quiet affirmation more powerful than any applause or acknowledgement. I am the author of my life, and I will never let anyone else write my story again.